Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week's first question comes to me from Sarah S. Helsing, or Sarah Schelsing. I have memories of struggling to pronounce your name in the past, Sarah, so I apologize for that, but I think it's one of those two. And anyway, Sarah asks, what do you think of web shows like Red vs. Blue that have lasted 10 years, and do you think web shows may replace mainstream TV shows at some point? I've never actually watched Red vs. Blue, and I feel like a bit of a heel to say that because you've asked this question a whole bunch of times, and you would think that before I decided to answer it on the video, I would have at least taken the time to watch an episode or two of Red vs. Blue, but I didn't. So I can't give you an opinion on that particular show, but I do think eventually that the on-demand model will replace like the network schedule model for how we watch TV. I don't know if we would still call them web series at that point, but I do think the Netflix model, the Hulu model of being able to select what you want to watch when you want to watch it will eventually become the dominant model. But I don't really foresee mainstream TV or network TV going away anytime soon. I mean, I think those of us who spend a lot of time on the internet tend to forget that there are other people besides us in the culture. And the truth is, network TV shows, and not even cable or premium like HBO stuff, just good old-fashioned network TV, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, still draws massively, massively larger audiences than most cable or premium pay cable shows, and that's it's just the most lucrative market that there is. And once the web series or the a la carte or on-demand models become more lucrative than the network model, then yeah, it will go the way of the dodo. But until that happens, it's going to remain in place and in charge. And I don't, again, that'll probably happen at some point, but I don't foresee it happening anytime in the near future. I think the major mainstream TV networks are definitely here to stay. Shigeno Goro, question, Steve, do you think in our lifetime, I'm 16, we will achieve huge life extension? I was watching a lot of documentaries by Ray Kurzweil and Aubrey de Grey, and they both have very, very good theories. Like Ray has, nanotechnology of huge life extension, or Aubrey has through body repair, like a body workshop. Thank you so much, Steve. Love you, by the way. Don't tell your wife. My wife doesn't usually watch the videos, so I think our secret is safe. Just you and I, together, forever. I don't know who, am I fucking Arthur C. Clarke? I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna have life extension in our lifetime. I hope so. I'm not looking forward to death. It'd be nice. There are some really exciting scientific advancements that I've learned about as I've done research for my And Now the Good News series. What I really am encouraged by is the idea of manipulating the telomeres at the end of our chromosomes. Every time a cell divides, these little bits on the end of chromosomes that are called telomeres, a little bit more of them break off, and eventually they break off to the point where the cell just isn't able to divide anymore, and that is what leads to the signs of aging, to senescence, that makes us feel older and weaker, and eventually, we die. And the idea of being able to manipulate that to keep those telomeres from breaking off so quickly, or maybe being able to repair them, that's really exciting. I don't know how far off that is, and I don't know ethically how good of an idea that is, because as people pointed out in comments on last week's You Had to Ask video after my response to the question about death, I mean, even though death is a sad and terrible thing from an individual point of view, it is also necessary, not just for the maintenance of life, but for the progress of life. Like, things cannot move forward, not just physiologically, but culturally, unless generations are dying and making room for the next generation. So life extension, I mean, it sounds like a good thing, and I generally think it is a good thing. But we also have to remember that death isn't necessarily something that we want to avoid. It might be something we want to forestall. It might be something we want to have more control over. It might be something we want to be able to reach with an absolute minimum of suffering and sickness. I'm all for that. but it's the goal isn't to live forever necessarily. That's not really a healthy option for us as a species. My Thousand Faces. Filmmaking question. Is there any filmmaking technique or storytelling trope that you feel is either overused or just plain stupid? There are a few that come to mind. One of them is a drum I've beaten repeatedly in videos that I'll just mention very briefly because it is honestly a big pet peeve of mine, and that is the use of like little epilogues at the end of a film, postscripts, as a title, like there'll be the final fade out, fade to black, and then a little postscript will fade up like a title card, and it'll say, you know, blah blah blah, here's what happened to the characters for the rest of their lives. You see it most of the time in films about real people, like biopics and stuff, and I just hate that. I just hate that. The movie's over. If the information in that postscript was so important, why wasn't it in the movie? Once the movie fades out, that's it. I want credits. I don't want to know what happened to the guy for the rest. I don't want to know that he's now living in Sherman Oaks, you know, and he's married to, so I don't care. The movie's over. So that would be one. And in terms of storytelling tropes, in the last 10, 15 years or so, the technique, and it's more of a screenwriting thing than anything, the technique of starting a movie in the middle or at the end and then backing up, when that first was done, it was kind of innovative, and I see why that's a good idea, and from the idea of wanting to get the audience's attention right away. In my screenwriting class, my screenwriting teacher suggested that. He said if you have a really, really good scene toward the end of your film, or even in the middle of your film, that you think is the best scene in the movie, pull it out and put it in the front. Make that your first scene to sort of propel the audience into the story, and then back up and show us how they got there. And sometimes that can work very well, but the problem is that it's done over and over and over and over again. You see a scene, you know, where the movie begins sort of in media res, and then you back up to see how that scene was arrived at, and it's just been overdone to the point where telling a linear story that actually starts at the beginning and goes in order to the end is now actually kind of innovative, because that technique of breaking up the timeline and dropping a later event in at the beginning has been so overused. So I would recommend getting rid of that, or at least using that technique far more sparingly than it has been used in the past, because now it seems like it's just done and done and done, and now it's fucking done. Travis Yost. Hey Steve, an atheist reads, and you had to ask, make my Thursday and Friday mornings. 2 questions. What camera microphone setup do you use for all your videos? And are you an Arrested Development fan? I don't think I've ever heard you mention it, but it seems like a show that would be in your wheelhouse. Thanks. Well, for the camera microphone setup, if you go back and watch the first video in this series, the first episode of You Had to Ask, I show you my camera setup. It's a Canon Vixia HFS21 with an external proprietary Canon microphone mounted on top. It's a really good setup for me. And yeah, I am an Arrested Development fan. I'm not like a huge Arrested Development fan. It's not something that, like, if you haven't heard me talk about it, because there are, not that I don't like it, there are just other shows that I mention more often, like the British Office, for instance, that I just think are better and mean more to me personally. But I like Arrested Development a lot. I think it's a really clever, really funny show, and just so well plotted. You know, it's a really well plotted farce. And that's actually the problem I'm having with the new season, the Netflix season that was just released. I'm about halfway, a little more than halfway through it actually. And what I'm noticing about it is that it seems way more interested in spinning out this incredibly complicated plot. Even for Arrested Development, that has this interconnected web of plot lines that are so complicated. And it seems like it's spending more of its time constantly going back and forth and bringing out all these elements of plot and showing us how they connect to each other and highlighting the various misunderstandings, etc., than it is actually doing funny stuff. It's just it's not really striking me as that funny. And that's a problem because Arrested Development back in the day, the original 3-year run, was really funny. And this time, it still has that sort of absurdist tone to it. It is very clearly a comedy, but it's just not making me laugh. And again, that's kind of a problem. But good to see it back nonetheless. Backfire Pictures. What's the weirdest, strangest thing you have ever eaten? If you watched last week's show, you know that one answer to this question is not ass. I'm actually kind of squeamish about eating things, eating weird things. I mean, eating food is fine. I'm willing to try all kinds of different food. And I'm not like picky about my food at all. Like I don't think I've ever sent anything back at a restaurant. And I don't make substitutions. And I mean, as long as you cook my steak medium, I don't really care. And if it's medium well or medium rare when I get it, that's fine. Like I'm not picky about it at all. My philosophy is, as long as it tastes good and it's safe, I don't care what it is. I don't care what you did to it before you gave it to me. So having said that, I don't really eat that many weird things. I mean, I remember years and years ago, about maybe 10, 12 years ago, before I tried sushi for the first time, I thought of sushi as a weird, strange thing. I think a lot of people who have never tried sushi feel that way. They just think raw fish, like what, you know. But after I tried it, it just became normal. It just became something that I eat from time to time. There's nothing, it doesn't seem exotic or strange at all. It's just something that I enjoy, that I like, you know, that I like to have. So there really isn't anything I can think of that's like a really weird, strange thing I've eaten. Robotic arms press. Considering your affinity for both writing and comics, have you ever considered writing an independent comic book / graphic novel? Oh yeah, I have concepts from back in the day for comic books that just never happened because I can't draw and and back then I didn't know very many people who could draw and who would have the time and the interest to help me start up an independent comic. Yeah, I have ideas. I still have. I haven't done much with them lately because I've been busy with the YouTube channel and with Neon Real Entertainment. But yeah, I mean, I have ideas for comic books that I would still love to do if anybody was willing to do the artwork. And you know, I mean, I guess now even if I couldn't get it published as a proper comic book, as a printed comic, I guess I could, you know, find some way to release it as a web comic or like as an ebook or something. I mean, there are more options now if I really wanted to do it. But yeah, I used to consider writing comic books. I would love to write comic books. WSR Man 33. Hi Steve, I'd like you to put two of the comments here together. Cage is over the top, but so is the original Captain Kirk, William Shatner. How about imagining a Star Trek movie or episode with Nick Cage? Do you think that would be a good match? Would you rather have him as the hero or the villain? To be really ridiculous, how would you fit Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, and some other pop icons or semi-retired actors into the Star Trek universe? I think the Star Trek meme is underexploited. Okay, here's how I see it. Nicolas Cage is one of Captain Kirk's instructors at the Academy, okay? Because we want to keep things sort of focused on Kirk in the new movies, and we want to have things have like a personal connection to the main character. It's the Spider-Man theory, where all of his villains are like former close friends of his, okay? It's contrived, but it works on an emotional level. So, we have Captain Kirk going out in space for his 5-year mission, and he runs into Nicolas Cage, who was one of his instructors back at the Academy, who was disgraced and sort of shipped off into exile at some you know, lowly Federation starbase way off in the outer rim of Federation territory. And the thing about Nicolas Cage's character is that he's really eccentric and he's nuts, and he's so crazy that the running joke is everybody constantly asks him what alien species he is. Because he's not. He's just a human, but everybody thinks he must be an alien because he acts like Nicolas Cage all the time. And then he does some crazy Nicolas Cage shit. Maybe he goes around and like he kidnaps Justin Timberlake and Justin Bieber and all the other pop icons, you know, and he like puts them into a little ship and flies them into a star. I don't know. I'm just sort of blue skying here. But anyway, it ends up with obviously Nicolas Cage has to turn full-blown villain at some point, so we can have that big scene, maybe of him like on the view screen of the Enterprise, just totally Nick Caging out, you know, just like throwing like a big hissy fit to Captain Kirk, and that could be like that's like the centerpiece around which we build the film. And then it probably has to end with him getting killed somehow. Maybe there can be like genetically engineered nano bees that can fly into him and can have like a Wicker Man callback. I don't know. It needs work. Yeah, it needs work. Fenrique, hey Steve, if you caught this week's WWE Raw, what were your thoughts on the promo for the Wyatt family? I personally am very much looking forward to their debut. Yeah, I was really glad to see that too. For those of you who don't know, the Wyatt family are a stable from NXT, which is the WWE's development territory. And they're one of the most interesting parts of that show, which is an awesome show, by the way. If you're a wrestling fan and you're not watching NXT, and it's on Hulu if you ever want to watch it, it is just a great show. It's the best show the WWE is producing right now. It's better than Raw and SmackDown and all of the main roster stuff. It's better than all of that because it's well booked. It's just well booked. It's basic, old school, no frills, fucking fundamentally sound pro wrestling, where angles are carried across several weeks and months and eventually have payoffs, and characters are kept relatively simple. Wrestlers are allowed to sort of cut their own promos, and I mean, it's just really well booked, and the talent that they have there is very impressive, and they're booked in a way that is highlighting what they're good at, which is, you know, who would have thought. But yeah, the Wyatt family is great. The Bray Wyatt, the leader, who is Wyndham Rotundo, the son of Mike Rotundo, and he's great. And the character, the gimmick, is he's sort of like the Messiah of the Bayou. He's like this cult leader from Louisiana, and it was sort of reminiscent of the John Hawkes character in Martha Marcy May Marlene. Maybe I think maybe whoever came up with that character, whether it was Wyndham Rotunda himself or Steve Kern or whoever gave him that gimmick, maybe they had seen that movie, and that's what they were thinking about. But it's a really great gimmick, and all the guys in the group are good hands in the ring. I just hope that when they get caught up to the main roster, that it's not completely fucked up. I mean, that there's sort of this tension now when I see like a new act in WWE get hot. There's always sort of a sinking feeling of, oh God, I hope that they don't screw this up. Like a few months ago with Antonio Cesaro, who was just ripping ass as the U.S. champion, was having great matches, was totally over with the crowd, seemed primed for just having a rocket strapped to his back. And then they had the guy start yodeling. Like, he would come to the ring and start yodeling. You have this lethal heel who's going in and throwing guys around like rag dolls and has been booked really strong to look really good. And all of a sudden, he starts coming to the ring yodeling. And I remember watching that for the first time going, oh my God, they're going to fuck this up. Like, whose idea is to have this guy yodel? What he's doing is perfect. Why do you have the motherfucker yodeling? It's terrible. And thankfully, they seem to have abandoned that now. But it's just one of those things where you think, you know, these guys, they have such incredible talent at their disposal, and yet it's like they could fuck up a wet dream. You know? So hopefully they won't fuck up the Wyatt family. I was very happy to see that promo. I really hope the Wyatt family comes along and they're allowed to do what has worked for them in NXT. And I hope they find a spot for them. The main roster is getting awfully crowded. Oh, what was that? Yeah, you hear that lightning? The lightning just frightened my kitty. Come here, Oddie Kitty. Oh, did you hear that thunder? Yeah. You know what that means? It means that it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
JVC Cam 96. Steve, if you could be a Star Trek character, who would you be? Uhura. I'm kidding. It would be Captain Kirk. I don't really want to be a lady. Troubleshooter 125, lightning round question. What's in the coffee cup during riffing on mail call? Folgers, Maxwell House, Starbucks, Hair of the Dog? Actually, it's usually 8 o'clock coffee. Every once in a while, it'll be like some iced tea or Coke or something, but almost always it's 8 o'clock coffee. And actually, I got some 8 o'clock coffee right here. It's iced coffee because it is fucking hot. God damn. Oh, Dane Eklund, pancakes or waffles? Oh, that's a tough one. Pancakes. Sailing Senior, question. When God said, let there be light, What language did he speak? He was speaking Klingon, but not because that's his native language. He was learning it to impress a boy. Logical Cake, you are Batman and the Joker has kidnapped both your wife and Audie, and they're in different warehouses rigged with bombs a la the Dark Knight. Who do you save? Ah, the classic superhero sadistic choice. I save my wife, and then I find the Joker and I drop him off a building for killing my cat. And Savior, if you could choose to suffer for eternity and it would guarantee that nobody else in the universe would ever suffer, would you do it? Why or why not? I wouldn't do it. How is that my job? How does that fall to me? No thank you. Get someone else to do it. Jaybird196. What is your opinion of Eddie Izzard as a comedian? He's funny. Radical Bacon. Would you ever shave your scrotum? No, dude. I'm married. Who am I trying to impress? I'm going to shave my scrotum. Aig. A-I-G-G. Hi, Steve. Did you ever see the mesmerizingly bad movie, The Room? If so, did you ever bring it up in any of your videos? Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Thanks. Yeah, look for, on my channel, there's a video called Steve and Stuffy Watch The Room. That's all about watching The Room. The Room is mesmerizingly bad. It's awesomely bad. One of the greatest bad movies ever made. Honey Ace 427. How do y'all celebrate Audie's birthday? We don't celebrate her birthday, but we do have a tradition. It's like Boxing Day. It's the day after Christmas, only we call it Audimus, and that's when we go out the day after Christmas and we buy presents for the cat. I don't know how we started doing that, but we do that like every year. It's we look forward to Audimus more than Christmas, I think. Because who doesn't like buying shit for their cat that the cat's going to be mildly interested in for like a day and then completely forget about, and you'll find it under the couch like 2 years later. Terry James, we all know Superman is DC's flagship character, but who do you think Marvel's is? For me, it's a toss-up between Captain America, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. It's Spider-Man. Not so much as far as the movies go lately, but in terms of the comics, in terms of the character that is considered to be the most important, yeah, it's definitely Spidey. Spidey is the flagship Marvel character, no question about it. Hey, that's it for the questions. That's it for the lightning round. It's all over now, but the crying and the shout out. And the shout out this week goes to the Gentleman Physicist. And note the dropped T in the username, the Gentleman Physicist, if you're typing that into your URL bar like a fucking caveman. The Gentleman Physicist has a great channel. It's a young, new channel, growing. I think he's only got 700 some subscribers, so get it on the ground floor of The Gentleman Physicist. It's a really cool channel. It talks about science. He makes really cool, short, little science videos. He's very at ease in front of the camera. He has a good presentation that will only get better, I think, and he deserves your attention. The Gentleman Physicist. Really cool, growing, new science-oriented YouTube channel. Check it out. That is it for this week. I will be back to do this again next week, provided, of course, you ask me some questions to talk about, because in order for me to do this, you have to ask. It's right there in the title. I'm surprised I have to keep explaining this. Please leave a comment on this video asking any question you want to hear me talk about, any subject, any topic. Nothing is off limits. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too stupid and frivolous, as I'm sure you can tell. Ask anything. I will try to answer as many of them as I possibly can next week. So until then, have a good week, and I will see you next week.